The Xbox and Activision Blizzard deal is closer to closing than we think. Warframe Studios Digital Extremes announces their brand new game, and some of the best features on the Xbox Series X and S can't work on PC. Hey guys, before we get into this, if you're new here, and I see that a lot of you are, if you enjoyed this video, you found it entertaining, you found it informative, please consider hitting that subscribe button. So 2022 has been a pretty down year in terms of first-party Xbox content coming over to the platform, coming onto Xbox Game Pass, and throughout this summer, there hasn't been any really big, huge news besides the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, which gave us a glimpse of what we can expect from Xbox over the next 12 months. Lots of exciting games that we're going to be able to play, but for the holiday season of 2022, there is definitely that big hitting Xbox Game Pass release that is missing. And we know God of War Ragnarok is releasing on November 9th. That is probably going to be the biggest game this holiday season that a lot of people are going to be talking about, and a lot of attention is going to be over onto PlayStation and with God of War. Now, one way I have thought that Xbox can really counteract all the attention that PlayStation is going to be getting with God of War in November, or leading up to the game's release in November in the last 4 months of the year, would be if somehow the Activision Blizzard deal was able to be closed before the end of 2022. And we know so far the movement on this deal has been going pretty well. Brad Smith has talked about how it is moving fast, which really could mean anything, but it definitely is a positive. We heard about the shareholders vote, where 98% of the shareholders voted to approve to pass this deal. We've seen people come out and who were against the deal, now for the deal. We've seen the Communications Workers of America who wrote a letter saying that they now approve this deal because Xbox and Microsoft said that they would be neutral with employees if they were going to be forming a union. And now we have some more news here that could potentially signify that the deal could be approved as early as August 2022. So it says here, the green light from the Federal Trade Commission for Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard could come next month. They have already responded. It's been confirmed they have responded to the second request for sending documentation to the FTC, and now the FTC has 30 days to request further information. They look into it and they find something they want some more stuff on, or it will automatically approve this deal, automatically approve the operation and Xbox acquiring Activision Blizzard. And the consequence of that, if they approve it in the next 30 days, it says here, the agreement between Microsoft and Activision Blizzard could materialize as early as August, with numerous IPs, including those of Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, and Crash Bandicoot, which would officially become a part of the Xbox Game Pass catalog, something that would be absolutely massive. Now, this to me, if it was able to close in August, is going to be the thing that's going to be able to offset the fact that Xbox has not had a first-party release in 2022. You think about the massive catalog of games, you think about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 coming out, plus all of the other Call of Duties that are currently being played right now, like Black Ops Cold War and Vanguard, which are the two main ones right now being played, and even Modern Warfare 2019. You take all three of those games and you instantly put those into Xbox Game Pass, it would be a huge boost to the service, and people would be going out to sign up to Xbox Game Pass. Plus any other titles out there, like the Overwatches, like the Diablos, and World of Warcraft, maybe adding more perks into Xbox Game Pass. Something like Crash Bandicoot, Crash 4, which you'll be able to jump right into the service. It is a game that was just recently available on the PlayStation Plus free games, but still being able to advertise that Crash Bandicoot is now officially an Xbox Game Studios going to Xbox Game Pass would be huge. And then you think about the advertising Xbox would be able to instantly start doing with the 120 frames per second and all of the Call of Duties right slapped on to the Xbox boxes going forward, and people walking into stores for the holiday season and choosing, do we want to buy a PS5 to play God of War, or do you want to buy an Xbox and get access to all of these games that we also love? The value for Xbox will highly outweigh the value for getting a PS5. So I think this right now, if it's able to close in 2022, could be that ace up Xbox's sleeve to kind of salvage this year, as a lot of people are very disappointed with the lack of first-party content. 2023 is going to be a completely different year. There's going to be Redfall, there's going to be Starfield, unless again they get delayed. Even if they got delayed, they're presumably still going to be coming out in 2023 sometime. So it's going to be a completely different year, and people are going to, I would say, forget about 2022 at some point if Xbox starts delivering on their first party content. But like I said, one way to salvage it is if this deal somehow magically closes before the end of the year and they have just a bunch of instant content they can drop into Xbox Game Pass and say, hey, go ahead and play this right now. And this acquisition closing would just be the end of the strings of the big acquisitions, with the Bungie deal closing last week for Sony. And previous to that, they had just closed their Haven Studios acquisition. And then, as we already know, Bethesda is already a part of Xbox. So these are some of the biggest gaming acquisitions that we've seen in a very long time. And they will all be closed, and then the industry will finally be able to move forward. And we're going to see how all of this stuff starts to play out, and which acquisitions and which companies benefit the most from the amount of money they've spent on these studios. It is a very exciting time. And we'll wait and see in the next 30 days if the FTC has any more questions. I have a feeling they're not going to. I have a feeling that Microsoft is very thorough when responding to these things. And hey, in 30 days, keep your eyes out, because August is just around the corner, and maybe there will be a big surprise for Xbox owners and for Xbox Game Pass. So jumping over here to some pretty exciting news. If you are a fan of Warframe and the developers Digital Extremes, if they have officially announced their brand new open world MMORPG called Soulframe. Now, they showed off a cinematic trailer for this game, and it looked extremely interesting with the overall aesthetic and everything that they were going for here. Really definitely reminds me of a Elden Ring style of look to it, and they do comment on their inspiration and everything for this game, and how initially definitely was not inspired by Elden Ring, but they talked about it after, because Elden Ring is such a great game. But for me, Warframe, when it first came out on the PS4, I think it was the first game I played on the PS4. It was free to play. I thought it was a pretty cool game, but I would have never guessed that the game would have taken off to be as big as it is today. Releasing back in 2013, and it's completely changed from when it initially released, but it has a very strong community. So this type of announcement with Soulframe is going to be a big hit, and it'll be very interesting to see just how this game ends up being. Now, in particular, they don't really say a release date or anything. It's still in early development, but they do say here it is a totally new game in early development. Soulframe will deliver its own independent and uniquely immersive experience, led by creative and imaginative minds behind Warframe. Where Warframe is focused on shooting, this one's focused on melee. Where Warframe is super fast and crazy high speed, this one's going to be a lot more slow and heavy, but it still has a lot of similarities to the genre that we have experience in. And when they talk about the melee, they talk about it being slow and heavy, definitely reminiscent of the Soul style of games, definitely reminiscent of Elden Ring, when you're in that open world and you're running around, really having to plan out your attack and memorize combos, memorize the enemy's movement, all of that type of stuff. Continues on here to say the conceit is that the world itself is a little angry about what's been done to it, and the grounds underneath tend to shift throughout the day. So there's going to be proceduralism within the cave networks and crevices and so on underneath the world. So there you have it. It's a brand new game coming from Digital Extremes. They showed it off at TennoCon 2022. A lot of people are going to be very excited for this, and I'll be excited to eventually check this out and see what it is all about, because it's been a long time in the coming for Digital Extremes to release something brand new, especially with the success of Warframe. So I remember when the Xbox Series X and S were first announced, and they were using terms like quick resume and velocity architecture, and a lot of people were saying that those were just buzzwords that really didn't mean anything, and they were just trying to sell and push the consoles themselves. Then the consoles released, and we really saw that they weren't actually just buzzwords. They did great things and made the quality of life on Xbox extremely good, especially a feature like Quick Resume, which allows you to suspend 3 games and then just swap between them and get right back to where you were in the game after you had left. And it's one of the best features on Xbox. Every single time I load up my Series X or S, when I jump back into a game and I see Quick Resume come up, I'm honestly amazed that it's so fast and it gets you right to where you were when you've turned off your Xbox. Even if you unplug your Xbox, then plug it back in, it still works. So it's a feature that if you are on PC and you're playing games on Xbox Game Pass for PC, you may be wondering, is this ever going to be able to make its way over to PC? They've brought over direct storage to PC, and stuff like that makes you think that maybe these Xbox features will make their way over to the platform. But Jason Ronald spoke here with Digital Trends and explains why it's a little bit harder than we think to bring over something like Quick Resume to PC. He says here, to give some context, it probably took us 2 to 2.5 years of development time to get Quick Resume to be as solid as it is. And I think that's a pretty telling quote in the just forward thinking and the preparation Xbox went down for the Xbox Series X and S. With the Xbox One not being a very successful generation, they really pulled out all the stops to make sure that this console so far, in the 2 years that it's been out, is a very enjoyable console to use. And I think they are doing a very good job. And you can see with all the planning and stuff that they were thinking about with the SSDs in there, and allowing us to be able to jump between games when you compare it to the Xbox One generation, with just how slow the loading times were. It's night and day, the generational gap between the two. Now, it goes on to talk about the process and how it works on the Xbox Series X and S, and says the Xbox Series X and S runs 3 operating systems simultaneously. The highest is for the UI and menu, the middle is for the game itself, and the lowest is for direct access to the hardware. And it's the interaction between the access to the hardware and the game which allows Quick Resume to actually work on the Xbox. He says you can think of them as virtual machines, which the mid one, which is the game one, puts the game into hibernation and then captures the full state of the machine, and that is written directly to the SSD through the lowest level OS, which is the direct access to the hardware. Because Quick Resume isn't just suspending the game, it's also the reason, as they mentioned here, why you can actually unplug your Series X and S, update it, leave it off for weeks or whatever, and go back. Quick Resume is still going to work. So in order for Quick Resume to specifically work on PC, says here you'd have to run games through a virtual machine, save the state of it to a hard drive, and hope nothing goes awry when you return. Another big roadblock is that, yes, PCs are completely open platform compared to Xbox, where everyone has the exact same hardware. Anything really goes for PC, different CPUs, different GPUs, different SSDs, all of that type of stuff. So it makes it a lot harder to make sure that Quick Resume is going to be able to work on everybody's platform, and they just don't want to put out a feature that is going to be hit and miss. They want to make sure that it works across everybody's platform, which is why they can do it on Xbox. Specifically, Jason Ronald says here, you've got a more complex software environment as well. A lot of PC gamers customize their rigs. You've got custom drivers unique to different graphics card. You've got mods on top of it. The PC is definitely much more complicated. The other big thing is, with the open platform, you have all of the different storefronts. You have Steam, you have Epic Games, you have Xbox Game Pass for PC. So you would need to get the Quick Resume feature to be able to work across all of those games. And Jason Ronald didn't say that these other storefronts wouldn't work. They do have relationships with Valve and Epic, and it could potentially work, but because how the games are packaged and how there is a difference between the different storefronts, it may be a contributing factor why Quick Resume wouldn't be functional on PC as well. So at the end of the day, it's the fact that Xbox is a closed ecosystem and they can really see where Quick Resume is working, where it isn't working, and make it streamlined across everybody who's experiencing the feature itself. Jason Ronald specifically saying, we don't want to be in a situation where it works on this game but not on that game, or works on this storefront versus that storefront. What we do want is to provide is the most consistent experience possible. Now, the reason he was being asked about all of this is because direct storage is now on PC. It is something that is available. It is a storage API that is behind just how fast the Xbox load times are. And we've seen stuff like Velocity Architecture come in with the load times and how fast things work. And when there was always that comparison between the Xbox load times versus the PlayStation load times, and the PlayStation having the fastest SSD out there, so the load times are going to be much faster. And obviously that is not the case. The load times are very similar. In fact, Xbox actually has faster loading times on specific games, but we can't compare Quick Resume to the direct storage. As Jason Ronald says here, Quick Resume itself is definitely a lot more complicated than direct storage API. So all in all, this is to say that the features that are built into the Xbox Series X and S, especially since they are far cheaper than you'd be paying if you wanted to get a PC around the same specs as the Xbox Series X and S, is pretty impressive. that these are features that just can't be plopped on to your PC. It definitely is a massive differentiating factor between the console and the PC, and it's something I think a lot of people don't talk about, especially particularly Quick Resume, which is a great feature. It sets apart the Xbox from the PS5, in my opinion, when you're jumping in between those games and you just see how fast it works and how well it works. And something that if it was on PC gamers would be enjoying this. Now, I get it. On PC, it's open. You could somehow get your own version of Quick Resume with the virtual machines and the save states that are already within games. But you would have to set all that up. With the Xbox, you're literally turning on your console and Quick Resume is there working for you. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Do you think Xbox is going to be able to close the deal with Activision Blizzard in August? Are you excited for Soulframe? And what are your thoughts on Quick Resume, the quality of life features on Xbox? And do you wish there would be a way to get those onto your PC? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here and you liked what you saw, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. I'll catch you in the next video.